Cops who were involved in deadly 401 wrong-way chase refused to be interviewed by the SIU. Cuts announced at Global News. The National Bank is taking over the Canadian Western Bank. At least 49 people have been killed in Kuwait in a fire and 80 die in a boat that capsized on river in the DRC. Good morning. It's Thursday, June 13th. I'm Nora, coming to you from the nation's capital of Ottawa. Here are your headlines. First, we start with follow-up news about those two cops who chased a guy onto the wrong way of the 401, resulting in the death of a family. CBC News is reporting that the SIU, which currently is undertaking an investigation into what happened, has said that the two officers under investigation have refused to participate in the investigation. They are invoking their charter right to not self-incriminate, something that technically all Canadians have a right to. CBC also notes that while the SIU said back in May that there were only 4 witnesses to the crash, the SIU has lined up 19 officers who are all acting as witnesses. And they'll be talking with 36 civilian witnesses and have more than 100 videos of the incident. The crash murdered 3-year-old Aditya Vivan and his grandparents, Manivanan Srinivasa Pillai and Mahalakshmi Anantakrishnan. They were visiting from India. Aditya's parents, Gokulnath Manivanan and Ashwintha Jawahar, survived but were seriously injured. The 21-year-old suspect who police chased after they alleged he robbed a liquor store died, and there's another man who was in the U-Haul van that was involved in the crash. He is still in hospital. Next to journalism news, Chorus has announced that it's making major changes, that, quote, made some changes, unquote, at Global News. The report from Sammy Hudis from the Canadian Press cites quote-unquote headwinds that have triggered quote-unquote massive cuts at other news agencies as being the same forces causing these cuts too. Global spokesperson Anna Arnone said this, quote, the move comes as part of an ongoing evaluation of its business and an efficiency review across Chorus, unquote. Though that wasn't a direct quote, that's how Hudis explains what Arnone said. Sorry, Anna, about your last name. She didn't expressly say that there have been layoffs, but her language certainly suggests that that's what's happening. Randy Kitt, who's my buddy and the director of the unit that represents uniform members at Chorus, said that this is another, quote, devastating blow to the industry, unquote. Chorus has lowered their expenses by 13% last month and 15% of costs so far in 2024. CEO Doug Murphy claims that there still is an impact from last year's Writers Guild strike on advertising revenue. Chorus has been begging the federal government to loosen how much Canadian content it must broadcast each year, something that the CRTC agreed to, which is like, thank God we can watch US TV on our TVs. Great way to protect Canadian culture. Next, there's been big news in the banking world. Canada's bank concentration is about to get even worse. The National Bank is going to acquire the Canadian Western Bank for about $5 billion. The announcement shot the CWB's shares up by 70%, though the National Bank's shares dropped a few dollars. The Canadian press calls the National Bank a quote-unquote Quebec-focused bank, which is funny and kind of meaningless, though I can say that I know people that have National Bank accounts, so maybe they are Quebec-focused. I'd say probably more like Quebec-based. I don't know. But CWB is concentrated in Alberta and BC, giving the National Bank national reach. Oh, and HSBC was just acquired by the Royal Bank. Did you miss that one? I did. That was Canada's largest ever banking deal, worth $13.5 billion. I can't believe I haven't seen more news on that. The CWB National Bank deal needs to be approved by shareholders and rubber stamped by regulators, so it won't likely come into force until late 2025. Now, next to international news and first to Kuwait. At least 49 people have been killed in a fire in the southern Mangaf district. This is an area where many foreign workers live, and the building that burned housed workers. There hasn't been any information related to the nationality of the casualties, though. In response, the Deputy Prime Minister Sheikh Fahad al-Yusuf al-Sabah demanded that the owner of the building be arrested when he visited the site. He told reporters this, quote, "Unfortunately, the greed of real estate owners is what leads to these matters," unquote. Something that I can't imagine, even under these circumstances, a Canadian politician saying. Actually, we've had two examples of something this horrible and big, one at L'Île Verte and the other at Lac Mégantic. And certainly not immediately following either tragedy did any politician blame the tragedies on greed, though they probably should have. And finally, more than 80 people have died in the Democratic Republic of Congo after a boat capsized on the Kwa River in Mal-Ndombe province. It happened 70 kilometers from the city of Mushi. The governor of the province, Rita Boladula, said that the tragedy was caused by sailing at night. Many people travel by river in Congo because it's easier in some regions than it is to travel by land. Boats are regularly overloaded, reports Al Jazeera. President Felix Tshisekedi immediately called for an investigation into what happened. Those are your headlines for Thursday, June 13th. I'm Nora. You're listening to the podcast at sandynora.com, on the Real News Network podcast feed, and anywhere you get your podcasts. I hope you have a wonderful Thursday. I'll talk to you tomorrow.